Okay,
Now
we're
it's
recording. Now we're recording. Now we're recording.
Take two.
Take two.
And go.
And go. Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Kids from It podcast. We are really happy to join you this day. We have a lot to go over and it's going to be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go around the room for the first time. We definitely haven't done this before. Carla, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Kayla, how are things going for you?
So great. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today.
Gonna be good. Kai, yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks. Also, Kayla, happy Mother's Day for the mother among
Thank
us.
you. Yeah, I had a really good day with the kids. They've been so sweet, and they were nice enough to let me do this. They are running around.
I felt really bad earlier today when we had just hopped on here. We were talking amongst ourselves. Kayla and I joined in about 15 minutes early. We were testing out her audio equipment, and she was helping me test out mine. And so I had talked to Kayla for like 20 minutes by that point, and Kai hops on. She goes, "Hey, happy Mother's Day." Kayla's like, "Oh God, I feel like a fucking asshole. I never said happy Mother's Day one time."
We were like, we get to talking about like.
We were in work mode. We were zoned in. We were.
That's what I came here for. Thank you.
So last episode, we spoke about the prestigious institution, Bob Jones University. And we spent the bulk of our time talking about the troubled relationship or let's be real, antagonistic relationship that Bob Jones University had with racism. And we meant to go over the whole culture they have surrounding, queer issues, and we never got into it. And so we really wanted to go down that road today because there's a lot of material to cover. So I'll start out asking you guys what your knowledge and experience is for whatever your interactions with Bob Jones University. We'll start with Kayla. What was it like during your time there?
I don't remember it ever being something that I heard much about. However, I knew coming out of the background as an IFB kid, that it wasn't tolerated. It wasn't going to be a thing in my life at Bob Jones University. And I remember really immediately knowing that I definitely had a different vibe than everybody else. I don't think I used to have a vibe back then, but I knew that was just beyond having a different background and coming out of the Haven, I just was, being weird, being different. I don't know. I didn't let all that stuff. So that was it. And then I know that me and Carla immediately, bonded because we were kind of just, the funny girls. We were the funny girls, So I don't know. That was it.
And Kai, I know you didn't attend the university, but from just what you've heard and interacted with, and it's like the short amount of time you ever spent there. What did you see?
I would probably be more in lines with Kayla. I didn't hear it talked about, and I didn't hear it discussed really ever. But I also only went to summer camp there, and then did the homeschool curriculum for most of junior high and high school. And I don't remember it even really being discussed in there, other than when you have your Bible classes and stuff, and it talks about I guess reading through the Bible and stuff like that, and how the topic of sin and Sodom and Gomorrah and that kind of thing, but the same theme that's found throughout all the IFB.
Can I add something really quick? Because Kai, I remember being pretty late in my teens, realizing that girls being gay was really kind of a thing. It just was not. I don't remember it being
interesting.
Yeah, and so
I'd say the same.
Yeah. Well, we can go more into it later, but that was
This is
That's I don't know. I don't know if you remember anything specific out of Maranatha, but I mean, it wasn't. We did get preached a lot about homosexuality in the churches, but I don't know. It was really aggressive. I felt towards, men. So to be totally honest, that's just my personal takeaway.
I think she's probably right.
Okay, yeah.
All right, Carla, how about yourself?
I guess I was, compared to a lot of other people there at the school, I feel like I was pretty deep into it. So I knew, and I like to say I have a pretty good gaydar, but I could tell if someone was gay or if they were questioning, or like I could just get that vibe. So it was usually people that I was already hanging out with, and the telltale signs were the same because it would be the same stuff that I would do to either try to hide it or to like kind of hint that, hey, I'm kind of into this. But for the girls, like it was hidden pretty well. For the men, you kind of just knew right off the bat if they were gay or not. But also, it was almost like, just from my perspective, and everyone else around me, like it was kind of welcomed by the men to be gay because all of them, not to be like stereotypical, but they were all in the arts department. So like either they were working on fashion or like they were really good artists, and so their teachers esteemed them. So I could tell like teachers knew, they just wouldn't snitch because they're like, well, they're a really good student, they're really great at what they do, and they're more focused on liberal arts instead of like the actual rules of the school. So they're just like, yeah, go on ahead. But as for the women, they kind of got it a bit worse than the men did as far as punishment goes and such. Whenever they
Really?
whenever they did get caught.
So that's why I'm glad that you're here because you made so many more friends at Bob Jones than I did. I was like very antisocial. I remember though that the art community and your friends, like when I would come to the cafeteria for lunch, which was rare, because I worked in the cafeteria, so I was either working or I was not.
Yeah.
I was food and dipping. But if I was gonna like hang out and sit, it was always with you, and it was always like a great crowd of people. But you told me who was in that picture the other day that I showed you at the frat thing. So I'm glad you're here to have that context. I'm a little surprised to hear that too. You mean like demerits and stuff?
Yeah, and just how harsh they were about it. It was more of like a threat when they would speak to us about
I guess.
just being gay, or if they thought that we might be. They were a little bit more intimidating, if that makes sense, and more bullish. So they would kind of like, even I feel like they just knew, and when they knew, they would kind of just like tower over you until you cowered, and you're like, okay, I won't do that. I'll stop hanging out with that person or being as close to them as you saw we were the other day. So I don't know, it's just weird and awkward
Mhm.
being confronted like that.
So, wow, a lot to unpack there. I still am having a hard time getting over the not knowing that gay women were a thing. That surprised me to hear that because
I knew that they were thinking, but I just didn't know it was like. I thought it was so rare. I thought it was just like here and there, and it was like a trendy thing, like a culture thing almost. Gay girls, like I didn't know that we were just out there, and I do, I did have, yeah. So
I think I know what you're saying. That so in the environment in which we were raised, women weren't really treated as if they had sexual agency of their own. They were, just participants in some sort of sexual act, but they're not willingly choosing, if it happens to be a guy, all right. If it happens to be a girl, okay, and there's like the entertainment factor, like, oh, the guys will think this is funny or sexy or whatever. And so I think that's probably, that'd be my guess. I don't know, but you can tell me if I'm incorrect here, but am I on the right track there?
Yeah, I'd say so. And definitely to, I don't know, when you said it goes deep into the purity culture and us being, objects and the way that we were brought up in the IFB, how we kind of do that. And yeah, my first, was for display, at parties and stuff like that. That's always, so it wasn't totally on my radar like it should have been when I was at Bob Jones. I'm sitting here kind of feeling like, damn, I really wasn't paying attention the way I should have been. So I don't know.
So when I was in college, I remember. So it's Carl. It was something you said. Maybe I think about this. So when I was in college for those 4 years, I was like 90% sure at least 3 or 4 different sets of girls were gay. And so was everyone else, because like you can spot it, that okay, these people two are way too close. I'm having a difficult time thinking of any couples of guys that I thought were gay. I can't think of any, but there were individuals. Like I think of a guy right now who was in the fine arts department. Made me think of it, but like if you submitted a screenplay for a gay character that played the piano, they throw it back in your face. It's too obvious, like the voice is high as hell. He's like really thin and dainty, and he like literally waves his hand like that. So okay, come on, what is going on here? And so it's funny when you said that, because like, there are people that would kind of notice, but something you mentioned, that they would kind of bully you, but the problem is it's hard to prove someone is gay. Like you have to catch them in the act to kind of actually prove it, or see something. So did you ever see anyone actually get busted for it, for lack of a better term, during your time there?
I don't think I did it. I don't think I did it all. I knew kids that were. My experience with anybody that got kicked out was a demerit thing. Like it was like there was a final straw, but it was never just one item. No, I didn't. But Carla, what about you?
I only saw the aftermath of when my friends would get kicked out. So I would see them packing up, or putting their stuff in a car, and I'm like,
Really
where are you going? We just got kicked out. We got caught doing this, and A, B, and C. Yeah, we got to go. And it was like a next day type thing.
Yeah, it was
Like,
so
caught, kicked out, sent home the very next day. It doesn't matter how far away you live. Doesn't matter if you have a game plan. If you know people in town or not. If you have the money to get home or not, you can't be on campus. Like you're out. Yeah.
Oh, so like, do you remember what happened in any of these cases, you guys?
Like what they got kicked out for?
Right.
They got caught in the prayer room making out.
girls.
So, girls,
like,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. It was so like hush hush. It was like I feel like it dealt with like the ultimate. It had to have been dealt with like the ultimate shame, because like I remember, my roommate, for example. I think she's okay with me. She's definitely okay with me talking about this, but she got expelled, and it was for going off campus with her boyfriend. Like in those circumstances, it was like you were made an example of, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a big thing. But it was always very quick also. But as I wrapped my brain for some of these other incidences, it was definitely more of a quiet situation, because obviously that's not on brand for the culture.
Yeah.
So
like if you knew about it, you only found out through word of mouth. If you knew the people, or if you were in the circle, then you knew about it. If you're kind of outside of it, you would just hear they got too many demerits, or they just weren't obedient. They weren't following the rules, got kicked out. And then later on, again, hearing by word of mouth, like exactly why they got kicked out. Yeah.
It's kind of like you remember how we'd have Wednesday night prayer meetings, and they'd ask for prayer requests, and you'd always have three people say, "I have an unspoken request."
Yes.
It was an unspoken expulsion, is what it was. And they just got out, but you couldn't talk about it or anything. Kai, did you ever hear anything? Like, if you heard anyone who went to Bob Jones, or any stories about that, or anything like that? Because did you mention that they didn't really talk about it? I guess not in camps, they probably wouldn't focus on it too much. I mean, it's just camp or whatever, but
because it was just summer camp. So like, if anything, it was maybe a sermon, but I don't remember hearing preaching about it. Because I mean, like really, like the summer camps, like the family camps, it was like you were going to camp, and then like the like career focused ones, that was like criminal justice or culinary or arts or whatever. Like you're in class all day, and it's like specific to that career field. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I think that's kind of the whole takeaway. It's definitely kind of always a quiet, or like a one-on-one, or within the family, between the pastor and whoever is immediately involved, is how it's generally dealt with, and also how it's directly, most directly probably preached, I think, but I don't know.
So at my college, They talked. I guess I don't know if they talked about it more than normal at my college. I thought it was pretty on point for what I'd seen throughout most of my life, but they would talk about it a lot in one or two ways. And this does kind of tie into what Kayla said, that the focus was and this is like this in culture, honestly, not just limited to IFB schools or institutions, that the focus of the hatred of the ire is gay dudes. That's the ones that really bother people. Like, it really upsets them for a lot of different reasons. One, because gay people are immediately seen as predatory, and men are more predatory than women, so it kind of amplifies it. And also because it threatens an idea of what masculinity should be. Yeah. It's like, whoa, hold on. That is not something that men do. And if guys are just allowed to do this, then what does that make me? You know, and so it kind of works into that way. So I remember hearing a lot of, I remember we had this guy like talking about how men and women play the piano differently. He's like, yeah, I don't like it when guys play the piano and it's all soft and sweet. That really bothers me. He's like, bro, I said, even back then, I said, what the fuck are you talking about? You're playing a musical instrument. And the other part was political. And it always makes me laugh when people say that churches aren't political. Well, as Constitution, they're not allowed to be, but find me a church that's not political. I dare you, please find me a church that's not political. Right. And they would always, like, this is back in my time when maybe this is why I remember it more, because back in those days,
now that you say it like that, you're right. It was usually if we were preached about it, it was like from that political standpoint. I think I do remember that a lot more in like history class and even like all over the place. So I was wrong. You're right, but not it's Bob Jones. But when I think back to like our upbringing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But so in those days, we were talking a lot about the fact that a lot of states were passing, or they were putting initiatives on their state ballots for their state constitution to outlaw gay marriage. That was a really big thing in the early 2000s, and preachers would do their best. They would do their best to skirt around this as much as they could without breaking the law. And they're saying, there's a ballot coming up in the 2002 election for this state, and gay marriage is on the ballot. And I'm just saying, you guys need to get out there and pray and vote the right way. Just trying to like dance around it. In fact, I don't know if you guys will remember this, but Pastor Carnahan once, I remember when it happened. Like, it was probably 2006, I want to say. And there was the state law in Missouri that made sodomy illegal. And for those of you who aren't aware, sodomy does not just mean anal sex. Like, it doesn't. Sodomy applies to oral sex as well. And I know, right? Yeah, surprising. But you guys can check me after the show. Look up the word sodomy. It will apply to that. So, which never mind. Never mind. I can go down this road. Keep the show as family friendly as possible. But there was a law in Missouri that outlawed sodomy, going back to the 1800s or whatever. And a lot of people said, okay, this is the year of our Lord 2006. Why do we have a law outlawing sodomy? And so they put it on the ballot to overturn it. And I remember Pastor Carney, because the reason it jumped out at me, because I knew he couldn't do this, but he did it anyway. And he was saying, we need to go out there and make sure this law stays on the books. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? What is going on here? So I remember the political thing happening a lot. Do you remember any of that, Carla, during your time at Bob Jones?
Honestly, no. Like, the main thing that was preached whenever I did hear about homosexuality, whether it was growing up in church or at Bob Jones, it was just that it was sin, and they would only bring up Sodom and Gomorrah. They wouldn't ever have like other examples to kind of back up what they were saying. It was just straight to that kind of scripture and just saying, if you're a homosexual, you're going to hell. That's it. But really, the main focus, especially at Bob Jones, was for the opposite sex to not, be so close to each other or to be doing the most. They were more focused on that and making sure that we abstained from immoral things.
Yeah. Gotta leave room for Jesus. 6 inches.
6 inches. Yeah. A very funny number that they chose.
Very but in the dorms, because I don't know about in your room, Carla, but in my room in the bunks, like, we had curtains, like, we were we made it very private, and there was they weren't worried about. I don't remember them being super worried about us in the dorms, but yeah, there was a lot of privacy, I guess, within the rooms that we could have created.
Yeah, we had those in college too. The guys would put the guys in the bottom bunks would just drape the blankets down. They called them spanket blankets, which I thought was very clever and funny. And so we it is like I think I don't know if we mentioned this last time or some other. Oh, it's probably our first episode about their weird fascination with people's genitals and specifically the kids' genitals. Like even to this day, it's still going on, but it's fucked up, man, and it's kind of weird. So one thing I wanted to do was talk about old triple sticks. I'm so happy I learned that. Yeah, I laughed about that the entire day when you guys referred to Bob Jones III as triple sticks. I've been looking around for anyone named the third so I can call them triple sticks. I wanted to bring you know someone?
I do. Sorry, you said it, and I just realized that now I'm gonna start calling him triple sticks.
Do it.
Again,
Do it.
I just got excited.
Let's make it a national thing. So
Let's do it.
I wanted to show this little thing about Bob Jones III and about Bob Jones University when it came to this particular issue, and I think you guys will enjoy it. Let's see if I can get it on the screen. What's going on here?
Oh, no.
All right, so this is not a video. Don't be worried. It's just a screenshot of the article, but this is from 2015. And Bob Jones III apologized for saying gays should be stoned, because as one does. And I got to read what he said here. So the article mentions that 3.5 decades. Someone say something? What? Oh, I thought I said something. 3.5 decades after calling for homosexuals to be stoned, former Bob Jones University president Bob Jones III has apologized. I take personal ownership of this inflammatory rhetoric, Jones said. This reckless statement was made in the heat of political controversy 35 years ago. The weekend apology came days after the conservative Christian school in South Carolina received a petition asking for an apology for a statement Jones made to the Associated Press in 1980 at the White House. And his quote was, "I'm sure this will be greatly misquoted, but I would," which is very funny, right?
I know y'all are going to get this wrong. I know it's going to sound like that.
It's so, and then the article proceeds to word for word quote what he said. It's like, buddy, trust me, this would have been better if they had misquoted you. But I'm sure this will be greatly misquoted, but it would not be a bad idea to bring the swift justice today that was brought in Israel's day against murder, rape, and homosexuality. Because those three are equally abhorrent crimes. I guarantee it would solve the problem post haste if homosexuals were stoned, if murderers were immediately killed as the Bible commands. So that's what he said in 1980. And in 2015, he says, upon now reading those long forgotten words, they seem to me as words belonging to a total stranger, were my name not attached. I cannot erase them, but wish I could, because they do not represent the belief of my heart or the content of my preaching. So I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if go on, Kelly, say what?
I don't know if I believe that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I do. And so I am about to share with everyone here a video, and this video contains statements that Bob Jones has made about homosexuality over the years, going back several decades. And from what I can tell, this seems pretty consistent with what he's been saying for a very long time. So let's go and get started here.
On the sin of homosexuality. They might even preach sermons and sing songs, but they're homosexuals and they're adulterers, fornicators of every kind. Said it was dishonorable for a man to cheat on his wife, or a wife to cheat on her husband, or to be a homosexual, or to be some kind of a sexual deviant. And the gods of the pagans involved bestiality and prostitution and homosexuality and all.
I want to pause real quick. By the way, if you guys want to pause, let me know. Just speak up and I'll pause if you want to say something, because this is like a 5-minute video. So feel free to jump on into the shit. But I'm sure you guys have noticed over the years, I certainly have, how often these folks compare homosexuality to bestiality. It is one of their go-to examples. Like when the whole gay marriage debate was going on in the early 2000s, I can't tell you how many times people said, well, look, if we allow gays to get married, what? We're going to let people marry animals and next? Did you guys ever run across that?
It's always like
Yes.
one to the other, like the extreme comparison.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely did hear. I thought that bestiality was going to be everywhere. I was like,
I mean, you're not wrong.
It's so funny. It's true.
I did.
Oh, man.
I do want to say something really quick before this just goes on, because the emotional reaction I'm having to hear this clip. This was like what I heard preached a lot during my time at the Haven. So I don't want to let I'm not trying to let Bob Jones off the hook, but I feel like for me, by the time I got to Bob Jones, like this was a non-issue. They didn't they could get away with somebody just like, maybe doing something kind of wild every now and then, to drive it home. But I don't know. I just wanted to add that in there.
No, 100% correct. Like this was the rule, not the exception. Like he was not outside the bounds of what we had heard for decades at this point. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. I think Kayla thought the bestiality ever. That was pretty funny. It's like we were sold a false bill of goods by all these folks. We thought that. It's just even as a kid, I never thought that made any sense. That we allow gay people to get married, and then like my penis is going to be in a goat the next day. Like, what are we talking about here? It's just it's a very odd comparison that I heard all the time. But let's hear old triple. All right, I'll stop saying it. But let's hear old triple six. Let's see what's going on.
Take it away, 666.
These things that were done in their worship, if you can believe that. Kind of perversion, homosexuality, all kind of perversion resulted. Inordinate affections, that's perversity, like lesbianism and homosexuality. God has already decreed that homosexuality is an abomination. The Scripture says so. That's what it calls it. The survivor of all survivors, a homosexual guy who prides himself in running around naked on an island, being a national hero.
I have no idea what he's referencing there. I've been racking my brain ever since I heard it. It's like,
I don't know either.
What gay guy was running around an island that was a national hero? I have no clue. Like I could have done some more research into it, but I was like, I'm not that interested. But I didn't know who he was talking about there.
The abomination thing was always the word referenced also, and I remember being like, where, and having questions about what exactly the scripture that was referenced meant. It was always King James version, and like, what,
And it was always the same passage. They never dove deeper than just what the verse said, and that was it.
Which verses are you guys referencing? Because the ones that I'm thinking of, that I think it's Exodus or Numbers, where it talks about if a man lie with a man as if he will lie with a woman, it's an abomination. And then the one that I heard the most, that's Old Testament, but the one I heard from the New Testament a lot was in Romans, when Paul said that what is it? They gave themselves over to what's the term? You guys know it.
Carnal desires or something.
Reprobate. That's the word. Reprobate minds. And then it's like men lying with men and women lying with women. Those are the ones that I referenced. Do you guys remember any other ones they talked about?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh, Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the main thing. That and the Exodus passage.
The Sodom and Gomorrah one is also kind of fishy too, because it doesn't explicitly. Well, I will get into it later, but like that, I always thought that one to be the weakest. But that's good.
I was appalled at their national convention this summer when they took great pains to parade a homosexual congressman and give him a speaking opportunity and made much ado over him. President Clinton declared June to be Gay Lesbian Month in America. I want to read you a paragraph of that proclamation. Don't have time to read the whole thing. Here's what the president signed his name to. this June, recognizing the joys and sorrows that the gay and lesbian movement has witnessed and the work that remains to be done, we observe Gay and Lesbian Pride Month and celebrate the progress we have made in creating a society more inclusive and accepting of gays and lesbians. I hope that in this new millennium we will continue to break down the walls of fear and prejudice and work to build a bridge to understanding and tolerance until gays and lesbians are afforded the same rights and responsibilities as all Americans.
I don't know about you, but that's the worst thing I've ever heard. I can't believe that. I cannot believe it. I thought this was America. What I wanted to add about this is I'd actually kind of forgotten about this kind of when how badly people took it when this shit happened. Because we were talking about Possum Grape, Arkansas, which is a real place for you guys wondering earlier before we did the show. And I remember how upset people were at not only the enshrinement of Pride Month, but even like private organizations creating their own Pride days. And I lost count of how many times I heard people say that we're boycotting Disney because they're having Pride Day at Disney, or we're boycotting the WNBA. And I remember a specific example.
Oh.
I know, right? Good luck surviving Disney without my dollars.
Yeah.
You know, we were mentioning Arkansas, and I remember this is one of many examples. It wasn't the only time I heard it, but we went to a Bible camp in Arkansas. It's the only time I've ever been to Arkansas, and don't plan to go back anytime soon. But I remember we had a preacher up there. He said two things that I'll never forget. The first thing he said was that, you know, the King James Bible is the only Bible we should be using. Even back then, I knew that was absurd. Yeah. But he said that he uses the NIV as toilet paper. I remember him saying that. And I remember asking Pastor Carney, I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. He goes, yeah, that's going a little far. I was like, oh, yeah. And then another thing he said was that he was really mad at Disney for having Pride Day. And he said, could you imagine if Disney had Murderer Day? Could you imagine if they did something like that? It's that absurd. But did you guys ever hear that? Because I heard many times people referring to like Gay Day as Murder Day. You ever heard that?
I never heard Gay Day as Murder Day, but I did hear that. I did hear Pride Month and you know, anything like that affiliated and associated with the most absurd things, like the most off the wall analogies I had ever heard. And being
it was always compared to something just
I also remember from Abomination. Yeah, Abomination. Always that. I remember it being like, I don't want to say from the pulpit, won't go as far as that, but definitely in like teen settings, like whatever settings we were in, it being you know, joked about in a way to like undermine it as a business, the government, you know, the country celebrating Pride Month. It was always just like, if you even buy into that, if you're even like,
Christ.
You know, whatever, it was, you were felt dumb if you thought that was something you wanted to support.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carla. Well, I totally was rambling there. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. It's just along the same lines as what she was saying. They would just compare it to ridiculous things and either shame you or just kind of sort of make you feel dumb or silly if you had thoughts that went against it, or just something to kind of back up that community and being like, they're not evil. And then they would come back with something to make you feel dumb. And you're like almost embarrassing you in front of your peers in a sense.
Yeah. One thing I like to point out to people I interact with that are younger is it's kind of hard to convey the overwhelming amount of casual homophobia that existed back in those days. Yeah. And I mean, and I participated in it all the time. And I would have considered myself like rather progressive on the issue, but you know, I had no problem saying, dude, that's so gay. Why are you doing that? And stuff like that. Like it was fun. It was just something that people just did. And I'm glad things have progressed over time. But if your baseline conversation is to refer to the queer community in a pejorative manner, just imagine how the rest of society went when you actually started compare like with these awful comparisons, which I'm pretty sure you're going to hear a lot more of them pretty soon. So let's get back to old Triple Sticks.
God will have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah if he allows a nation that wants to give special privileges, wants to recognize as normal a perverted lifestyle that the Bible declares to be sin. Because God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah for accepting
there it is.
that kind of a society. God hasn't changed. And the problem is not that they don't have rights, that they want special rights. They want the rights to pedophilia. They want the right to go into the schools and corrupt the minds and the morals of young ladies and young men.
All right, I have to pause it right there. Before the show started, I asked you all to pull up all of the legislations and bills that allowed queer people to be pedophiles. So if you guys can share those documents with me, go right ahead. We'll wait till you pull them up. Oh, they don't exist. How about that? That's weird. That's very strange because Bob Jones III just said there with zero hesitation. The line that they love to say is like, oh, man, these folks don't want rights. They want special rights, which is not true, at all. And then went on to say they want the right to pedophilia. Now, I want to go back to what he said in 2015. Upon reading those long forgotten words, they seemed to me as words belonging to a total stranger, were my name not attached. I cannot erase them, but I wish I could, because they do not represent the belief of my heart or the content of my preaching. So I don't know. Maybe he was a little bit off on that. I just wanted to point that out. Go ahead.
I was just laughing. Like here's some content.
Yeah, seems pretty consistent to me. Let's see what else he has to say here.
But I feel like
They want the right to push their agenda.
Sorry, Kai, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. I feel like that's not the first time I've heard it. Like, when he said, like, they're asking for special rights, like, to pedophilia and stuff like that. I feel like that was something I heard from the pulpit growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that within the IFB is that members of the queer community, they like little kids and, like, pedophilia and, like, that was the whole thing. So I feel maybe I'm the only one who, had that experience. But I remember, like, thinking that there's no way that was right because, like, people are evil. Like, there's evil people in every, like, walk of life, right? So, like, that's not, but I feel like far too frequently they said things such as, oh, they want access to little kids, or, oh, they're, like, they have ulterior motives and stuff. So, like, they was always up there with murder, but also up there with bestiality was that they wanted to hurt children or marry children or whatever it was.
I'll second that. One of my friends, this was, I think, when we were probably freshmen in college, and we were back from school. And this is how I know that it was just the wrong information was drilled into our heads. One of our friends, I know for a fact he's gay, but it was just like hush hush, or kind of, we just wondered a little bit. But we would hear rumors, and one of my friends said, I don't know if I want him around my nephew anymore. He's probably going to touch him, or he works with all these kids. He's probably going to, how is he going to be a teacher? I'm like, just because he's gay doesn't mean he's going to touch every child in front of him. Like, that's not what that means. That is a whole other context when talking about Sodom and Gomorrah that the church has yet again totally skewed. They haven't done enough research into the history behind what any of that means. Like, pedophilia has its own meaning within the Bible, and it has its own context, has a bunch of just history behind that the church refuses to.
There is actually a lot of direct scripture about pedophilia,
and they and say it's about homosexuality when it's not.
It's homosexuality, And
I mean, let's just not talk. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, babe.
Oh, no, I was going to say, let's not talk about the KJV, like the IFB, KJV believing pastors that, like, have all been convicted of pedophilia.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm glad you brought that up, because I have one in particular I want to talk about today. And so, we'll talk, that'll be a great reference point later. I'm glad that you guys said that, because the one thing that he said that stuck out to me, too, was that I heard a lot was also God hasn't changed. And to my knowledge, God did very much change between the Old Testament and New Testament, and yet some of this stuff they really pull from way back there, and so I don't know. That's a whole other soapbox as well.
Yeah, that's quite a long conversation there. So, yeah, I don't want to launch into this. Kayla. Yeah, I don't want to launch into this on this episode, but the whole does God change? It depends on what religion you're practicing. Now, you can make it that he did or that he didn't, depending on what you're.
Them specifically, like they will preach, that why we're able to do certain things, why they're able to
eat shellfish.
Yeah, whatever. Thank you. That's the justification. So I did mean like the IFB specifically. They do got a change card, whatever.
I have a few slides on this very topic after Bob Jones is done. So it's like you guys are too sharp for me. You're way ahead. But let's finish up with old triple sticks here. I'm sure we'll find something else ridiculous he says.
That's what they want. Kidnappers don't have that right. Kidnappers are put in jail for their crimes. Rapists don't have that right. Thieves and murderers don't have that right. But this kind of sin, there's a great pressure on to have some kind of a special appreciation for the sin of homosexuality that we don't have for other sins. I mean, there's a whole perversity of thinking in all that. When you really stop, contemplate it, why in the world should one brand of sin get preferential treatment? And why should all of society be asked to move over and accept a sinful, perverted, corruptive, and death-dealing lifestyle? It is that. Why should we be asked to accept that and run the risks of all that? Hey, if somebody wants to be a murderer or a homosexual or a thief or a kidnapper or a rapist, nobody can stop them from that. But don't ask law-abiding citizens to sanction that and to appreciate that and to approve that and to make special laws protecting that. There's the problem. We're in big trouble because of the sins of the nation.
All right, so I want to add a few things to this, so real quick, then I'll go around to everybody else to gather your thoughts. So one thing that whenever you talk to these folks, these independent fundamental Baptists, you guys ever hear them and you start to corner them on this and you say, well, so do you have like this hatred for gay people? One thing that they'll like to say is, no, listen, all sin is sin. We are all sinners. They would say this shit all the time. Yeah. And first off, no, the fuck it's not. You know it. Like, you know that all sins are not equal. Like, don't lie to my face right here.
Probably just got to, or about to get a divorce or whatever.
Yeah. There's a reason you're comparing homosexuality, Bob Jones, to murder, rape, and kidnapping, and not paying a speeding ticket or something. Like, yeah, there's a reason that you're comparing it like that, because you see it as a larger crime than others. Like if you find out someone, violated an ordinance and built a shed onto their house when they weren't supposed to, you're not going to kick them out of your church. You find out someone is gay, you will kick them out of your church. So you don't believe all sin is equal. It always bugged me. I just didn't appreciate the cowardice. Like, if you actually believe this shit, stand up for what you believe in and say it with your whole chest. So we'll start with Carla. Like, what did you think about the esteemed words of Dr. Jones there?
They're just so dangerous, because I saw it firsthand where words like that can put a whole community in almost kind of making them choose between one sin or another. So my example was when I was at Bob Jones. That's where I actually found my first girlfriend. Oh. But we had to break up shortly after we became official because her dad found out. And instead of them making a big deal about it, and instead of them like snitching on me, because then his daughter would have gotten kicked out too, right? So instead, she contacted me with just, I don't know, a paragraph long thing saying, I can't speak to you anymore. When we go back to school after this break, we're not allowed to speak to each other. And I'm like, how will they know? And he's like, he has people there watching. Like, there will be people watching to make sure you and I don't speak to each other. And then immediately she got a boyfriend right after that, and like soon got engaged and they got married. But before that, they were like engaged in like physical activities and did basically all the things that she and I did that they just welcomed. So we're at a school that preaches against doing anything immoral, anything physical with each other. Then on top of that, homosexuality, her parents said, hard no, you will not speak to this person ever again, let alone look the same direction that they are. But you're going to be with this guy, and who cares? Yeah, sure, you're not supposed to do that, but go ahead, because at least you're not gay.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there like, first of all, heartbroken. Second, just like, you just took away the freedom from your own daughter. She felt so free and like safe with me, and now she doesn't have that anymore, and you're making her be surrounded by people who won't accept that part of her, and she has never looked back to this day. And that's the type of stuff that makes me so heartbroken, is that his words scare people into hiding who they are and basically leading a double life for the rest of their lives, when like people who knew them to the core know deep down, like, you're not happy. You just know how to lie. The church teaches you how to lie so well to yourself, which breaks my heart, honestly.
True. Kai, what would you think from what you heard there?
I think it's wild that he says things like that.
Yeah.
And then tried to come back and say, like, I'm smiling because it's so ridiculous, right? Like, and then he tried to come back and say his words were like, I didn't say that. That doesn't sound like me. Like, maybe okay, I can't read his mind. Maybe his heart changed. But, like, at least own it. At least be like, no, I did. Like, I was in the wrong. Like, I never should have said those things. And, like, I don't know. It just hurts my heart that, like, people say stuff like that and it hurts other people. And he's not right. And I don't think it's okay. But I think, like, they want to compare it to all these horrible sins, right? But, like, can you show me like, I mean, you guys know I'm still a Christian, right? But, like, show me in the Bible where it says that homosexuality or, like, being queer, right, is a worse sin than anything else, right? Like, if it is a sin, to show me where it says that it's up there with, like, murder and raping and kidnapping, right? You know what I mean? Like, you want to say all sin is equal, okay, but then it's conveniently not when it works with the narrative that you're pushing, right? Like, me having horrible thoughts about so-and-so is the same as someone being murdered. I mean, if you read the Bible for what it is, and all sin is equal, me having horrible thoughts about someone is just as bad as someone committing murder. So, like, I don't know. I think that's one thing that the church has gotten horribly wrong, is, like, the way in which they treat people and what they say, because I don't know, it just really hurts my heart, because Jesus loved everyone, and the church doesn't do a good job of loving everyone. They love who they want to love.
Kayla,
so it's a little bit off the rails with BJ, but I mean, it pisses me off, and it makes me sad that, you know.
It's really
anyways,
sad
I'm done
because, you know, faith is a beautiful thing. It is. So it is sad to see any time that humans mess it up. You know, people should have something to believe in all kinds of areas of their life. But right, it's really sad. I can't help but think right now about my Haven sisters, and how statistically speaking, there's a lot more of us that out of this group of girls that are and should be, I think, probably out. Or maybe would be in a normal kind of like setting. So I just think about like the statistics of the schools, the homeschool settings, the sports teams and all that stuff in the IFB movement. And you're right, Carla, like the waves of it and the impact of it is long, and you're right, like the words are powerful. I think you guys said it really beautifully. And it's just, I remember, I think it's just going to spoil more of what we're going to talk about soon, but I've been really into the Mike Miller thing, and so if you want to group some stuff together with statistics, you can. It's not that though. So that just comes to the forefront of my mind. So that's all I really have to add to what they said. You guys got it, Nick?
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with a lot of everything everybody said. And what I'd like to do now, if you all would permit me, is check to see if Bob Jones really meant what he said about how he's changed his mind about gays is bad and stuff. And take a look at the rule book for Bob Jones University and see exactly what they think about the queer community and their students participating in it. So this is pulled straight from the student handbook of Bob Jones University. I'm going to read a few excerpts from it here. Their position on human sexuality. Just reading that's very strange. I can't imagine that any organization needs a position on human sexuality. Like, why would that have to be brought up at all? But it says the New Testament exhorts believers to strive to live morally pure and sexually undefiled lives, even in the midst of an immoral and sexually permissive culture. Therefore, any sexual activity outside the context of a biblically defined marriage between one man and one woman is permitted. By the way, the Bible nowhere says that marriage is defined between one man and woman. It's not there. Try to find it. You won't. Additionally, so the closest thing you can find to that, just so anyone's wondering, is that you can find in the New Testament description of who gets to be a bishop. It says a bishop should be one man, the man of one wife. That's it. You can't find any law where, and look at the Old Testament patriarchs, they all had dozens of wives like all the time. Yeah. Which is God never said one word about that. But all right. Additionally, any sexual behavior that is inconsistent with these standards, including sexual intercourse, other sexually intimate forms of touching and sexual communication in written, verbal, or visual form, is prohibited when consensual. Consistent with our commitment to God's commitment for gender identity, because of course they had to do this, the public advocacy for or act of altering one's biological sex through medical transition or transgender expression is prohibited. Any same-sex dating or advocacy for such is also prohibited. BJU's perspective on gender identity also applies to, but is not limited to, the use of bathrooms, locker rooms, student housing, attire policies, and participating in same-sex or in sex-specific university groups, clubs, and organizations. So, I just very specific on this, that they had to go out of their way to make sure that trans people are not allowed at their school. Like that's what it says, right? Am I reading that incorrectly? I imagine that wasn't an issue back in the day, but now it might be. But even this current day, they want to let you know that that's not cool. And let's see, did that go down here?
It's where they come after the advocacy for me as well, because it goes into such a, it's not only coming at people like homosexuals, but it's also just coming at people for thinking. How do you chalk that up to anything else, or to expressing themselves, like freedom of speech? I put it, that verbiage just drives me nuts. I don't know.
Yeah. You can't support the gay community either. You can't do it. You can't advocate for it. Like that's wild. Context for human sexuality. Human sexuality is part of God's divine design for human beings. However, the Bible restricts all forms of consensual sexual activity to within the boundaries of marriage relationships. The Bible clearly prohibits not only non-consensual sexual misconduct in Deuteronomy 22, 25 through 27, and we are going to check out that passage. So that's why I underlined it. We're going to get to that passage. Therefore, we believe that to intentionally alter or change one's physical gender to live as a gender other than the one assigned at conception is to reject God's right as a creator to assign gender to his creatures, and is personal rejection of his plan to glorify himself through the original gender he assigned that individual. Now, I highlighted that paragraph because it jumped out at me for this reason. It says that we believe that to intentionally alter or change one's physical gender or to live as a gender other than the one assigned at conception is to reject God. And that doesn't make sense for two reasons. The first reason is that you have no gender at conception because gender is an expression. Like you have your biological sex, that's more or less immutable. I have XY chromosomes, like I have male gametes, but my gender is my choice. Like if I want to be a female, I can. Like I mean that doesn't change my sex, but my gender does change. But in this instance, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they're using the word sex as gender. Well, that doesn't work either, because I remember learning in biology class that we all start out as females. Like at conception, you are a female. Like everyone is. Like you males don't become males until you get like your testosterone wash like several weeks into gestation. Am I incorrect about this? Like, did you guys learn that as well?
I do think that's true. I think so. I know
It sounds right.
Or been taught it, read it somewhere.
Yeah, it's why we all have nipples, because like men don't need them. Like, there's no reason they're there, but they're vestiges from back when we were female, when we started out. So in that case, I guess they would have to, if just following what they wrote here, they would have to accept men becoming women, which is what they're really worried about. So they're the ones that they're actually concerned with. So that one did crack me up. So I wanted to talk about Deuteronomy 22. So they mentioned Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses, I think, 22 through 25, I think is what it was, as the basis for one of their laws, because they mentioned, sexual impropriety. And in Deuteronomy 22, you have like a bunch of random verses up top that talk about, if you see a fellow Israelite's donkey on the road, you should help him get it on its feet. Do not wear clothes of wool and linen together, stuff like that, just random stuff here and there. But then you get to marriage violations. That's what we're going to go over here. That's what the second part of the chapter is about. So these are these are the verses they referenced in the rule book. So they're basing their rules on Deuteronomy chapter 22. So let's see what it says. It says, if a man is found sleeping with another man's wife, both the man who slept with her and the woman must die. You must purge that evil from Israel. If a man happens to meet in town a virgin pledged to be married and sleeps with her, you shall take both of them to the gate of that town and stone them to death. The young woman, because she was in town and did not scream for help, and the man, because he violated another man's wife. You must purge the evil from among you. But if out in the country a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married and rapes her, only the man who has done this shall die. Do nothing to the woman. She has committed no sin deserving death. This case is like that of someone who attacks and murders a neighbor. For the man found the young woman in the country, and though the betrothed woman screamed, there was no one to rescue her. So what's going on here is that in verse 23, it talks about a man raping a virgin, and she doesn't scream for help. If she doesn't scream, she gets executed along with her rapist. If a man rapes a woman and she does scream for help, only the rapist gets executed. And that's I don't see how that comports at all with what Bob Jones wrote down. I mean, I read the rules there. Did you guys catch anything about executing people that committed anything like that? Did I miss it?
It didn't.
And I want to go a little bit further with this too, because everything that's written here is written about a woman who is one of three things. She is a virgin, she is married, or she is engaged. She's some combination of those three. And so you might be wondering, well, what about a woman who wasn't one of those three? Well, I'm glad you asked. So if a man happens to meet a virgin who is not engaged or not pledged to be married and rapes her and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. And get this, he must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. He can never divorce her as long as he lives. So if, according to what Bob Jones wants, apparently, if a woman is a virgin and she's raped, the crime is not against the woman. The crime is against her father, because he has now devalued his investment of this girl that he can't get any money off of because she's no longer a virgin. And after this is done, the rapist's punishment is to pay her father whatever 50 shekels of silver works out to today. And he has to marry her. She has to marry the rapist. And good news, it's illegal to divorce her, to divorce him. So yeah, I don't know if that's what Bob Jones wants, but that's what's written there. And I'm gonna close it out with what's written right before what Bob Jones cited as the basis for their rules. If a man takes a wife and after sleeping with her dislikes her and slanders her and gives her a bad name, saying, I married this woman, but when I approached her, I did not find proof of her virginity. Now, if any of you listening out there are wondering, well, how would he have proof that she's a virgin? Well, the answer is a bloody sheet. That's how you know she's a virgin. Like, if she doesn't bleed when you consummate the marriage on the wedding night, you can essentially charge her father with fraud because he gave you an impure wife. So, where was I right here? Oh, yeah. Then the young woman's father and mother shall bring to the town elders at the gate proof that she was virgin. Now, if you're wondering, like, what would the proof be? The proof would be the bloody sheet. And that's what they would need to show everyone in town. Her father will say to the elders, I gave my daughter in marriage to this man, but he dislikes her. Now he has slandered her and said, I did not find your daughter to be a virgin, but here is the proof of my daughter's virginity. Then her parents shall display the cloth, the bloody sheet, before the elders of the town. And the elders shall take the man and punish him. They shall fine him 100 shekels of silver and give them to the young woman's father. Once again, the woman doesn't even get paid for that. She gets slandered, publicly and legally, and still the money goes to her father because that's who the crime is actually against. Because this man has given an Israelite virgin a bad name. She shall continue to be his wife, and once again, he cannot divorce her as long as he lives. If, however, the charge is true and no proof of the woman's virginity can be found, which I say for the third time, the proof of her virginity is her bleeding the first time she has sex with him. If she broke her hymen riding a horse or anything somewhere along the line, she shall be brought to the door of her father's house, and the men of her town will stone her to death. So if a guy lies about her being a virgin, he has to pay a fine. If she actually isn't a virgin, she is executed. She has done an outrageous thing in Israel by being promiscuous while in our father's house. You must purge this evil from you. So this is why it bothers me whenever I see like Bob Jones University trying to do this stuff by saying, well, we have to follow these sexual commands of the Old Testament, and here's our reference for it. And then you look up the reference, you're like, you're not following any of this. You picked like one line out of this entire chapter and built an entire paradigm of sexuality on it. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that's very cool.
I don't either.
But I feel like that's a theme throughout all the IFB.
Yes.
Is like
yes.
They take one, like they don't look at the context. They take one verse and they say X, Y, and Z, and then they don't look at the before or the after, like the verse before it or the after it, and they're just like, nope, this is it, and then they like derail from there.
Not only that, like they will take one sentence,
that too,
section of a scripture verse, and they will build an entire, sermon based around that one little thing, and they'll say they're doing it. I'm just going off this one, or I'm going to preach to you today about, whatever it is, the last portion of Psalm 183, whatever, and that they'll focus on that sentence. And there's so many different ways you can interpret language. They're so and they ride that very often from the pulpit.
Oh yeah.
And I remember
youth pastors do it a lot too. Like youth pastors try to make it cool, and they'll be like, "I bet you didn't know this was about this. Well, I'm going to teach you about it tonight." Mic drop. And all the kids are like, "What? Whoa!"
With questions, like youth pastors losing control of the youth settings very often, just because us as teens, we were asking questions, like literally, like, why wouldn't she bleed the first time? And then these, teachers, youth pastors, whatever they were, not being able to stand on or even scientifically answer those questions or medically answer those questions, and then us teens just roasting them, like taking it from there, because we, we're teens, we kind of were figuring that stuff out on our own, and whatever.
Yeah,
we had to figure that out on our own because we weren't really allowed to ask questions about anything that had to do with sexuality or even like our reproductive health. I remember I was a teenager on Facebook just talking about things, and I had a complaint just about like cramps or something, and I had a parent come up to me the next day at church and be like, "You don't need to be talking about that stuff." I'm like, what? They're like, that's kind of inappropriate. Like, that stuff shouldn't be spoken about. Just drop it next time, okay? I'm like, okay. So it was all seen as taboo.
Mhm.
Yet
Mhm.
when they preach about it and say wild things to us that make us go, what? We still can't even question it because that's a sin.
Yeah, yeah. I would have more respect for them if they actually just did say this. Like, so when Bob Jones said that, yeah, I believe gays should be executed. Yeah, all right, okay. I mean, you're taking like an actual verse and going with it, what it says, but they're cowards. Like they're cowards. They're like, yeah, we're gonna take this part here and ignore literally everything else just to part. It's like what Kayla that you brought up is like ignoring the eating shellfish thing. Like you can find 1,000 commandments in the Old Testament that nobody follows, like nobody at all. But that's just convenient. Oh yeah, well, but the gay stuff, yeah, that's important. We need to follow that one. Like that's an absolute. And it's just like there's no consistency in it. And the only consistent part is like, and what really bothers me is when they say that this is all about love because the only love they're interested in is tough love. That's the only love that has any value at all. It's like, oh yeah, you're an abomination, you're a sinner, you deserve hell, but I'm only saying this because I love you. Don't you understand? Like God loves you just like I do, which is why I need to tell you that you are living an awful life. You're a terrible human being, but all our sin is the same. But come on, you know what's going on here. I'm in the superior position because I'm amongst God's favorite, His chosen, and it's just the amount of times we saw that on any number of issues growing up. It's not surprising to me that the movement is shrinking, but not fast enough, if you ask me. But it is shrinking. So I don't know if there's anything guys wanted to add to that, but that's all I had to say on it.
No, I think you're right.
All right, cool.
Shocked me a little bit. That they're still doing that. They're still referencing it. I wasn't expecting you to find that content.
That's what it's like. So like that quote from that interview was 9 years ago. And I don't think he's there anymore. I think he left a couple years later. Like I think he left like 2018, 2019.
Who, Bob Jones III?
Yeah, didn't he leave as
I thought
president?
he left way before then.
Did he?
Left.
I think he left.
His son took over. His son took over when Kayla and I were in school, but he was still there kind of overseeing and making sure that his son was running the show correctly.
I guess
He resigned as president and became chancellor, and so he was still chancellor at that point, but he wasn't chancellor for a few years later. But it's just that last line is what really launched me off on this shit, because him saying, I don't even recognize the person that said that. I can't. It's like, really, buddy? Really? Because it sounds suspiciously similar to everything I heard over the last 30 years. And I imagine you said a lot of the same shit, and he did. So, yeah, I've never met Bob Jones III, but if I do, it's on site. Like, I have so much against this guy. And by the way, need I remind everyone, this is Bob Jones III. Like, imagine like the first model Bob Jones and how awful that guy must have been. So yeah, it's pretty bad to see. But all right, we'll wrap it up here for this episode, and we thank you guys for joining us. And join us next time. We'll have more fantastic content for you. Thanks a lot.